welcome to another episode of the Super Bold podcast. I'm Fred Joyle, and I interview my amazing friends and associates and colleagues out there in the world who are doing bold things and have had some interesting twists and turns in their life to get where they are. And my guest today is equally amazing as most of my guests, probably one of the more amazing ones. Her name's MJ Gordon. She's a globally recognized high performance coach, and she created a company called the Level Up Program, which helps overwhelmed entrepreneurs like myself to move into a sustainable six figures without, and the key word being without, sacrificing their own personal goals, like staying in shape and spending time with their family. And she teaches you how to biohack and your life to get more time, more energy. And she's worked with Fortune 500 companies, and she has some really interesting stuff like an algorithm that we're going to talk about. And she combines holistic thinking with neurology and emotional intelligence and systems thinking. And it becomes this sustainable strategy for people to have incredible careers while having a satisfying, balanced life. And that's kind of exciting. I think I know more imbalanced entrepreneurs than I know balanced ones at this point. So MJ, welcome to the episode.
Thanks so much, Fred, for having me. I appreciate just everything about you. So it's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you for that wonderful intro.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there may be a few things that nobody appreciates about me. So you just
Oh,
don't know
no.
them.
All of us have those few things, if not
Yeah.
more.
So give us a sense of how this business that you've created, the high performance coaching business, really came to be. I'm so curious when people create a business out of nothing, essentially, which is what you
Yeah,
did.
right. That's a good question. I've been on YouTube for a long time, just creating as a hobbyist. And so over that time, I built a audience that I didn't have any business or anything associated with. But I am an entrepreneur and business owner outside of that. And I was running my production company. We're a kind of boutique production studio. We blew up with the FBA boom and do a lot of other stuff for government, tech, finance, etc. But during that time, I was posting on YouTube about how I was getting so burnt out and I didn't know how to sustain my business. I was trying all these productivity hacks and minimalism and all this other stuff. And it turned out to be that my body system was not optimized. I was not making enough cortisol. I was almost making zero cortisol. And when I
Wow.
realized that my system was off, it wasn't a problem with me. People started to ask, what did you do? How did you fix it? I was able to fix it holistically. I'm not against hormone therapy, but I really wanted to do that as naturally as possible. And I was able to do so. And so I created a like off my camera phone, just like a little program, like, hey, here's what I did, X, Y, and Z, threw it up there, $20, and people were buying it. And after about 6 to 12 months, people were like, hey, can you get on a call? And I was like, well, I guess I'll do a consulting call with you. And long story short, in 2023, I decided to step back and I was like, wow, people's lives are changing. It's actually working, but people aren't getting through the program because I'm just kind of, throwing it in their court. And so in early 2024, I decided, okay, I'm going to step fully into this. We're going to make it a full-blown coaching program. We're going to level it up and use data and metrics and things that people can implement automatically because entrepreneurs are busy. We don't have time, lots of times, to meditate for an hour and read all our books and go to the gym and run our businesses, let alone a lot of us who are parents as well. So, we started leaning into that and building out this program. And now fast forward to just a year plus later, it's doing great. We're going to step out of our production company by the end of this year. And most of all, we're changing people's lives. We have an impactful, amazing, very close knit community, and it's been more fulfilling than ever.
So you really started, your work life as a trainer, right? As a athletic trainer. Uh,
Yes,
it,
like back in the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and that evolved to this, but you got busier and busier. Essentially, what you developed was chronic fatigue. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
uh,
HPA axis dysfunction, I think is what they call the medical term.
yeah, which I've never heard, but I've heard plenty of chronic fatigue, and I know how impairing it can be. And so, uh, you basically swung way out of balance because you were capitalizing on your youth and
Yes.
your the momentum that we have, that we can, oh yeah, we can do that and this and sleep 4 hours
Yeah, not at
and
all.
still get up and knock out another 12.
Yep.
uh and boy, it catches up with you. But what would you say was the boldest step you took that shifted everything?
Yeah, I
Because
think it was.
I'm I'm about boldness, so
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably what took courage was to turn inward. I mean, because on top of this diagnosis, what really pushed me into getting assessed was that my husband sat me down. He's like, look, the business is crumbling. We're going into debt. The tax bill is huge. You're not around. And when you are around, you're not yourself. I'm not happy. What the heck is going on? And so I remember so clearly sitting in my bathroom and just feeling like I was staring at this mountain that I was never going to get over. It was like, I just don't know how to get out anymore. The realization hit me, this is not sustainable, and I don't know what's wrong. Like, I know myself to be, a very steadfast person, very focused, very energetic, and I'm not sure why I can't seem to pull it together. And I decided I need more help. I need to step away from my business. We left Hawaii. It was our dream life. We had built this dream life with a business, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't living it because I was sitting here stressed on the other side. My
yeah.
family was missing me. And we moved out here to Florida to be closer to family, closer, in a more financially or economic, situation, and also be close to doctors and all the other things that I needed to support what I call my recovery era. So it was about 18 months, 2 years of recovering, and really trusting that I could do this and that the whole world would keep spinning and I wasn't going to be left behind, that I could take that time, step out of all of the desires, the goals, the dreams, and just really focus on recovering so that I can come back to it, a year and a half later. Is so difficult. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we can't sit still. It's just, I mean,
Yeah.
so much FOMO. I mean, that's the way that I describe it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You. It's almost, it's an urgency. I
Mhm.
have to get to this. I can't
Mhm.
not get to it because it's right there.
Yeah.
Whereas other people they're just looking to be comfortable. They're looking to coast through the next 50 or 60 years if possible,
Yeah.
with as little stress. But we're not wired that way. Uh,
Yeah. And it's
and
not like a
truth,
sexy kind of bold, like it's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not.
no, it's something. Boldness often comes with some real discomfort, and especially if it's the boldness to acknowledge that we are radically off course somehow, and the course was designed by us, uh,
Mhm.
and it be so. So, how old were you when this happened?
Well, this was in 2017. So about 30. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. I was having
it,
like a mini midlife crisis there at 30. I was like, wow, I thought I would be in a totally different place at 30. And I'm just like, am I an absolute failure? That was the first time I had ever experienced in my entrepreneurship career. Like, am I really fit to do this? Like, am I reaching too high? you know, did I fail? And so it was a lot. And I didn't even really realize that I was going through a lot of that until like a year later. I was able to look back and go, wow, like internally, that really kind of threw me in for a loop.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's so interesting that it was happening to you, and you were so into it. But as they say, it's like it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. You're so into that life, and you don't know why it doesn't feel right, because all of the things that you were aiming for, you're sort of clicking off. But at the same time, you're deeper in debt. You're not spending time with your kids. Your husband's unhappy with you. And but the thing that you did do is, I think you reprioritized
Well, and
and
a
said,
part of it is like you're trying to do everything right. And I think this is a huge piece that I, was missing is that I was exercising. I had a vegan diet. Health and fitness was my thing. So, like you said, reprioritize. But at that time, I was like, I thought I had my priorities straight. I'm running my business. I'm, taking care. I'm not out partying or any of those things, right? So,
yeah. So it's like, I love that you're introspective, or were introspective enough at that time to say, I've got to re-examine this, because, and I think, you had a great partner in your life who sort of gave you the wake up call too. It's this is not working. What where's MJ? Where's the MJ that I know and love and trust? Um, so, because you know a lot of entrepreneurs, that's the end of their marriage.
mhm.
uh they the spouse says, that's enough of this. You're in love with your career or whatever, or you've given up on us because we've become tertiary as a priority, or lower, non-existent sometimes. uh, and so I think we live in a country of achievement is how we measure ourselves, and a lot of times bank accounts is how we measure ourselves.
Mhm.
And we're indoctrinated into that belief, uh, from capitalism, but there's no uh, calculation for joy and fulfillment as part of it, and nobody explains to uh, you the what they lost. I mean, I remember meeting this very successful business person back at my university, and he was donating enough money to create a separate business school. And he just said, I'm 68 years old, and I have no relationship with my children whatsoever.
Mhm.
um, and he said, and my health is horrible. So he said, so those were the sacrifices I made to get here. And in his voice, I could hear that he was really questioning, the
Mhm.
was the trade-off worth it for the success. But he was good at what he did, and lucky, which is sometimes worse,
Yeah.
because the payoff is significant when your talent and luck combined with timing. Um, where, the other thing I like to ask about in terms of boldness is are there ever things in your life where you didn't act boldly, where you hesitated, and you held yourself back, you didn't weren't confident enough, or you didn't weren't sure how it was going to go, and you just went. And it doesn't have to be a business thing, it could be anything. I like the personal stuff as much. And the opportunity disappeared, the window of opportunity closed, or whether it was a moment or a day, or something you could have reached out for, and you didn't, and it gnaws at you. Could you think of anything like that?
I wouldn't say there's anything significant that gnaws at me, but there's definitely moments where I hesitated and I said, I'll watch the market and wait, or I convinced myself, let's not be too greedy and not take the bolder risks and turn around and say, wow, what a huge loss of opportunity. Um, so definitely that has happened. But I think what it's propelled me to do now is say, in this moment, my feelings can change. And I know about myself, I have this tendency of confusing myself, saying this is an exceptional situation, or it's different, so I can't treat it the same as I knew back then. And just for myself, I've learned that hindsight, take what I've learned and apply it moving forward. It's not an exception to the rule. Just that's the way I've overcome it. But yeah, I probably the biggest thing for me is when I was 19. I had built my first six-figure company, and that's really young. And then back then,
Yeah.
that's almost 20 years ago. That was a lot of money back then. Nowadays everybody makes six figures and everybody's looking to be a millionaire. But uh I thought I had made it big. At that time I was like, I just wanted $5,000 a month. I was making, 10, and I was going to Vegas and I was doing the, Palm Springs thing and living on the upscale apartment and just like in the most expensive town in the neighborhood. And I wish I could go back and tell myself, hey, just scale it down a little, have some fun, but like you
Yeah.
don't have you instead of 15 hours, maybe just work 30, because I was just sitting at the pool and like drinking cocktails all day. It was
Yeah.
bad. And so I think maybe that is like, I didn't realize moving forward that I wouldn't be that energetic. I wouldn't have so little responsibilities. And that would be my prime time that I had technically not taken the most advantage of or fully optimized. And then now it's like I have kids, I've got multiple businesses and all these other things that I'm managing. And it's definitely a lot harder.
So the Level Up program, there's there's three steps, three parts to it that I think you talk about that I think are really I would love you to get more specific about. I'm talking about align and design. Refine.
Yeah.
So lay those out for our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. The program's really quite unique because we talk about it as this is like your system to scale your business without sacrificing your personal goals or self-care, time with family, things that are most important to you. Because most of us focus on the business and then we forget why we're doing it in the first place. And so our goal is to help support that sustainable scaling. And so we have a three-step process or a three-phase process. And we found that in our first phase, our goal is to give you the highest ROI for the smallest amount of effort because we're busy, and to get you the most time and energy back. And you're essentially, you're not buying it back. You're not creating more of it. What you're doing is you're getting more out of the time and energy that you do have. And so, Align, our first phase or stage of the program, is all about helping you understand how to situate your body, your brain, and your habits so that your central nervous system automatically recovers. As entrepreneurs, we're in a constant state of fight or flight because we're constantly solving problems, thinking about things and creating. And as wonderful and exciting as that is, we love those dopamine hits. We need to be able to calm down. If we don't, we get in a cycle of deficit. And even though we're getting sleep and we're wired the next morning, it's like wired and tired. We need our caffeine. And then what happens is maybe not today, but 10, 15, 20 years later, something big comes up. We've seen cancer, autoimmune diseases, burnout. And these things don't happen overnight. They come from a series of like years of stacked stress. Um, I'm so passionate about it because you had mentioned earlier that you had a friend that said he had sacrificed for his family to build his successful career. I have a friend that probably a lot of people here know his company in this business space. At the age of 46, he died of pancreatic cancer, but he had built this empire. And
Wow.
that was when it hit me, and I said, our health is the number one. This is the only vehicle we get. We don't get another brain. We don't get another body. And we sit here and we prioritize our money and our business strategy, but we have absolutely no strategy for our longevity and health. So, our first step was to reset that nervous system, get you more into a recovery cycle instead of a deficit cycle. And then in stage two, we actually have a charting algorithm. Like you said, how do you measure happiness, fulfillment? We have something for that. We have found the very core fundamental elements that people tend to do for with themselves, with others, and with their time, money, and energy. And we've graphed this all on a chart of the driving forces behind it, the enjoyment, the fulfillment, and the purpose. And what we're able to do is have people audit their actions based on this chart. And so we say, how do you want your life design to look? What is it that you're doing? And then uniquely to you, what creates fulfillment, joy, satisfaction, purpose? And then you put that action on the chart and it spits out a number. And what we've found is that a number of 10 plus means it's a pretty optimal action. You're going to feel pretty happy about your decision in doing that. But if it's a 20 plus, it becomes really supportive to your identity. And a lot of people, have, their spirituality, or, for me, it's this business or their kids. Those things tend to score at a 20 plus. And so it's a really nice way to remove the conflict and the friction, because most of what people are doing is they're taking action towards a subjective goal that they think they're going to achieve without really understanding how it is hitting the root enjoyment, fulfillment, and purpose that they're after. Now, the second thing to that is when you can take multiple actions and stack them together to like be one action to hit more of these elements, then you really get back time. Because instead of me saying, okay, I'm going to run my business, which is my production company over here, but I really feel like I want to contribute to health or whatever. So I'm going to do a nonprofit group or, a community workshop over here. Now I'm juggling two things. Instead, I can combine my business and create something that is sustainable for me, my family, my team, bring in money, but still contribute in the way that I want to in, health and business. And so when you start combining actions like this, then life becomes simplified, but it becomes totally fulfilled and full of purpose. So the last stage is we lean more into the understanding of neurodivergence, the neurology aspect. It's crazy, but most of us who are entrepreneurs, we're on the spectrum somewhere, even if we just have ADD. There's something about the way that we process our dopamine is a little bit different. And it creates hyper focus, but also scatteredness and, lots of energy and all of this stuff. And if you understand how those dopamine cycles work in your brain, it's actually really easy to leverage them to get you to be motivated to do the next thing. And most of us fight with it. We're learning all these strategies, in books about productivity and focus and mindset and affirmations and all these things that don't really affect the dopamine in our brain. So if you understand how that cycle works specific to your divergence, then all of a sudden a huge roadblock gets out of the way. We lean into EQ so that you can be more self-aware, as well as aware for your personal relationships, your team, the way that you show up. You close sales more. You, have better retention rates. Your client, business relationships improve, and talk about how this all generates a potential legacy for you, no matter how big or small, whether it's just for your family or you want to impact on a global scale. All of this is fueling that ultimate, level of fulfillment, which I think for us as humans is really the highest high, is that fulfillment aspect. So you can look at
Yeah.
stage one as we're going to give you what you need. Stage two is create what you want. And then stage three is what are you going to leave behind?
Ah, okay. So it's the stages are align, design, and refine.
Mhm.
But I also like what you just said, because with you're really looking at the third stage is start looking at your legacy. Who do and that's what I challenge people to in terms of boldness, is when they say, why should I become bolder? Things are okay now. I'm pretty satisfied with stuff. And I said, because two things. Life is really short. and we'll get to the finish line before we know it. And if you don't get to your stuff today on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, a decade's going to go by and you're not going to have enough energy or enough time. Or if you're waiting for enough time or enough money, that's when you're going to get to it.
It's not going to come.
It's not going to come. There's never enough time. It's like, when's a good time to have kids? Never.
Yeah.
You know, so just have kids and figure out what to do. But you brought up something which is, if you're lucky enough for it to happen and for you to act on it, you had what I call an inciting incident in your life. That's a term more for screenplays, actually. Is that term is like every story has an inciting incident where the whole story changes. But it's an epiphany if it becomes that. It doesn't have to be. You can miss it. But when you saw this person die at 46, incredibly successfully, that was an inciting incident for you. And you said, "Oh, there's something terribly wrong with that formula." Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with the way he created the business, or there is maybe something wrong with the way he created the business. Because he left key things out, like his body, like monitoring himself. And of course, we know men are horrible at seeing doctors until after we have something fatal. But yeah, do you help your clients if to sort of give them that epiphany so that they don't have to have a crisis? Do you have a way of doing that? I mean, I love all of the stuff you're talking about. So I'm wondering, if I were a client and how would you say, how would you peel back what I'm doing to tell me where I'm off course?
Yeah. I mean, the program is pretty robust and we are all about data and metrics. So the first step that we have anybody do is we test them. We get all the functional labs. We want to test your hormones, your sensitivities, IgA reactivities, where your gut is. If you want to do the neurodiversity, we recommend that because it helps a lot, especially if you're dealing with, habits or addiction issues. And we just look for the gaps. There's not a single person who comes in, even when they feel amazing, that doesn't have something. They could be 22 or 45 or 50. We find something. And you don't realize how much friction that causes. We have this saying in Level Up that says like, the burnout or overwhelm comes from death by 1,000 unseen cuts to your energy. It's all stacked, and that's why it is really kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing, because we have this tendency of somebody's like, hey, can you do this? Can I set up this appointment? Or when can I find time to do this? And we look at our calendar and we see those gaps and we're like, oh, I can stick it. I got 5 minutes there and I'll do that. And while I'm, sitting here, I'll just check my phone and get to a couple emails, and we're just going on and on and on. And so we stack that stress. And what we want to do is we want to teach you how to identify where your brainwave states are. Are you in a sympathetic state or not? And how to, what we call, rev up and wind down, create a progressive flow in and out of those states so that you're not hitting the ground running and you're from 0 to 60 right out of bed. A lot of people think the millionaire morning is how they should wake up. But until you're a millionaire and you have, those 3 to 5 hours in the morning to just be able to go at whatever flow, and you're scaling a business, you're starting a family, or you're in the middle of doing something, in terms of growth, you're in a deficit state, and recovery should be your focus, not get up, cold plunge, hit the gym, all these things that put you in a sympathetic state and keep you there all day is actually creating that deficit in your brain and body. So that's the first thing that we do. And we find those, we fill those, we teach you not what to eliminate or what to add for hours a day, but how to reorganize the way that you behave in life, your habits, so that it supports that progressive flow.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you start there, because that's where they're most of the time not looking, or they think they've got it somehow covered, or it doesn't matter whether it's diet or chemical imbalance because of what they've done to their system. One of the things that I read recently, which I thought was fascinating, is I was reading this book by this psychologist, Terrence Real, and he talks about how he approaches psychotherapy differently by basically calling people on their bullshit instead of going, well, what do you think the answer is? So he'll have a patient and he'll say, oh, I get my marriage is this way and that way and all this. And he'll, after a while, he'll say to the guy, I can't help you until you deal with your alcoholism. You have to stop being an alcoholic and then I can treat you. Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what you're doing too, is you're saying we gotta look at what's not working right at the core, the engine that is producing this success, your body. And are you not maintaining that engine? Are you not changing the oil? Are you over revving it constantly? And if you don't start there, you're sort of circling around the core
Mm.
issue, I think is what you're saying. Um, okay, so let's assume that I take really good care of myself, which I have this fantasy that I do. Um, what's next for me? What do you attack next?
Yeah, great. We teach you then that's the internal aspect. Then we teach you the external aspect of um, we simplify it to two metrics that matter of your diet. The philosophy is if you understand how to balance your pH and balance your blood sugar, you're going to eliminate 80 plus problems that we normally have in terms of inflammation and disease and illness. I'm going to knock on wood before I say this, but it has been over 2 years since I've been sick. I could be around my sick kid who's throwing up and, lose sleep and not have an issue because I try to balance my system just with these very simple principles. We don't care if you're ketogenic or you're vegan, as long as your levels look good and these two metrics are your main focus, it becomes pretty simple after that. We then teach you how to increase the threshold through movement, but also through that we have an energy algorithm in which you're able to plug in your schedule, let's say, or your actions, the things that you do. It could be like podcast or sales calls or mowing the yard, and you plug them in, and there are two numbers that you plug. It's going to be your energy output and your mental output, and it'll spit out a number and it'll give you what we call your total daily energy limit. And what you can do is say, okay, tomorrow I have, 4 sales calls and I have to mow the lawn. And it'll say, well, MJ, your daily limit's 50 and this says 54. So maybe I should move mowing the lawn to tomorrow. And so it allows you to visually see. And one of the things that I've seen that, and it was totally unplanned, but I see a lot of my clients, they all tend to be empaths. So they're like, oh, you can't do it. Don't worry. I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I got it. No worries. I don't need help. And what has happened using this energy number is they have a tendency to be like, I can't. I'm full today, not because my schedule, not because there's a gap in my schedule, but because my number has been, I busted
Yeah.
and so I got to
Mm.
schedule it another day. So they automatically create what they're using as a term boundaries that they didn't know that they didn't have, but there isn't like any guilt or anything about it because the data shows them that they literally cannot sustain this. And so we teach you how to move that energy number up on a daily basis based on the principles that you've learned in the modules of Align, which is restore, eat, and move. And then the next step would be like, okay, we've got that down. You're recovering. And sometimes people will double up, right? We'll work on this at the same time. We'll walk into stage 2 and we'll say, okay, let's now audit your process. We have what we call a 3P formula. It starts with process, audit your process. Then we're going to purge. And ideally, we look at that fundamental elements chart, those actions audits that I was talking about earlier, and say, okay, what things are below that number 10? And can we purge any of these? Or the third P, be purposeful in prioritizing how we can either upgrade or swap it for something that's going to target the elements that you're trying to hit, or that you're trying to accomplish through these actions. So, like, maybe one of the things for me is like, I want to have a dog. And it's like, why do I want to have a dog? Right. And so I look at that chart and it's like, well, there's entertainment, there's joy, I'm taking care of something, I'm connecting with something, it's, fun for my kids and experience. And I'm taking all of those elements and saying, what other things can I do? Because then the dog is also expensive, it's time consuming, stressful. We travel a lot, we're going overseas, all these things. Is there something that I can change in my situation to eliminate some of those negative setbacks? Or is there something else I can do instead of adopting a dog that will fulfill the reasons or the things that I like about having a dog, right? So that would be step 2 after the reset.
I like that a lot. This whole thing that you're talking about, it's almost like, I think about it like an electric car where you have a battery that you're running down, and if you're doing 90 for too long, the gauge is telling you you're burning more watts faster.
Yeah.
And you got to do something to get more watts. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really what you're doing, is telling people, like, you get so many watts. Now there's ways to increase your watts, but there's also ways that you're burning more watts than you have. You're planning to burn more watts than you have.
Mm-hmm.
So change those things around, and to create an assessment that is, there's more on the rational side. Emotionally, I want a dog. Okay. Rationally, what's the impact that is going to decrease the joy of that dog to the point where I'm asking, why did I do this?
Well, we had to do this, Fred, because what we were beginning to find is that if we were to tell our clients, look, like, assess, be aware within yourselves. Most entrepreneurs are mind over matter, no pain, no gain, right? Like, we know, we embody this, just like, get through it, focus, and, get to the goal, that we almost numb ourselves from hearing when the body is like, hey, I'm done. We don't know the difference. And the truth is, we've spent years and years having our body overproduce the adrenaline, overproduce the cortisol. So we're injecting ourselves with these natural chemicals and possibly caffeine that we really can't sense when we've passed that mark. Our body's boosting us forward. So we're like, no, I feel fine. I feel fine. And then all of a sudden we tank, or we get really vacation sickness. I mean, that happens. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like, oh, I finally get this time to go on vacation. And then you find yourself like getting sick. And that's because the body really
Yes,
goes off, and it's like,
it's been saying, finally you slow down enough for me to let you know we're actually ill.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it happens a
what?
lot.
Yeah, I've seen it happen. Yeah, that's very interesting. Uh, and so, uh, another thought I wanted to get into, because you have kids and you have fairly young kids. Do you feel like you're imparting this kind of sense to them already? I mean, they're young. They're not 10 years old yet. I don't think
I
they're
have
kids.
a 4, a 12, and a 14-year-old.
Oh, okay. You have 3 kids.
My 3,
Uh,
yeah.
there's an extra one in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they're teenagers. So are they, like, done with your advice at this point in the relationship, or are they absorbing some of this stuff as
They
part of their?
absolutely love it. They love it.
That's
They don't have screen addiction issues. They don't feel the same kind of drag or hate for homework and all these other things that they see their friends have issues with. They find that their chores are pleasurable and not, like, oh, something I have to do, or stressful, and those sort of things. And that's that combo of not just, knowing where your energy and creating those buffers for yourself, but also that the neurology stuff really helps them, where they're like, okay, I understand dopamine cycles. I understand what we call frictionless dopamine hits. A lot of the screen time creates a frictionless dopamine hit. I'm running into stage 3 now, but when they realize, when I do something that creates such a huge unnatural dopamine hit in my brain, there's no way you're going to get around it. You are just programming your brain to be lazy, because then, Sunday night you're playing video games and you're like, it's a weekend. We have this thing called prime time. Don't put frictionless dopamine during prime time because it's expensive. So if you're Sunday night and Monday morning you got to get up, but Sunday night you're like, this is my last chance for a little bit of weekend, and you get your favorite ice cream and you sit in front of your big screen TV and you let that movie go on at the same time. If you're like me, you're playing Candy Crush while you're eating the ice cream and watching the movie. I mean, you're just getting like so much dopamine for zero work. So what happens when you wake up the next day and you're like, oh man, I got to get on my computer and answer these emails. I got to look at these contracts. I got to get on these calls. Your brain's like, no way, Jose. Like, we just partied last night. I didn't have to work that hard for that. Like, why would I do this? I'm not even going to get a huge reward at the end, right? So my kids know that when they go to a birthday party or they're playing video games on the weekend, I don't really have to tell them like, hey, here's your limit. They know, and that the consequence, they can clearly see what it feels like when they lose that motivation and they feel stressed, versus when they follow some of the strategies and the things that they know, and they're like, okay, like Monday morning, I'm excited to get to school, like let's do this. And so obviously it takes time for them to see that pattern, but once they recognize it, I don't have to say no more cake. They know.
That's an incredible gift for them to understand something like that at any point in your life, but so young, so that they're not hating school, they're not looking at chores as oppressive, and it's affecting their mood, and they're not falling for these ever-present addictions that we are surrounded with. I mean, the number of times that I have thrown my phone across the room because Instagram got me is it's astounding. And I've said the algorithm is better at this than me. Right.
Yeah.
It is smarter than my self-discipline. So I stopped doing it, because there were times when I would do it right before I go to bed. It's like, let me look.
Prime time.
It's like the stupidest thing imaginable to
It's
do
so
is
simple,
like
yeah.
when you're tired and going to bed at the time you're supposed to be going to sleep, and you burn an hour because the algorithm's winning every click. And what happens is you've really disturbed the sleep cycle as well.
Yeah.
You've
And
had a
that's the way you wake up.
physically negative reaction
Yeah.
that you let yourself get there with our digital lines of cocaine here.
Yeah.
Uh,
The cool thing is with the kids, they're repelled by it. Sometimes I have to be like, come on, watch this movie with me. And they're like, no, mom, I don't. And because they're so used to sustainable dopamine, that when they experience that high and that crash, they're like, oh, this stinks. Like, I hate this feeling, because they're so unplugged from it that they can feel that difference. Whereas most of us, we're plugged in all the time, that we experience the crash before we experience that, sustainable feel good.
yeah. And
Yeah.
your kids are so used to that evenness that when they're zooming up on the dopamine, they go, I know what's coming. There's a
Yeah.
crash. I don't want to pay. All right.
Yeah.
It's like, which is great. I mean, it's such a mature thing that we can all benefit from. Okay. So I've got all of that under control. What's my refined stage look like?
Yeah, amazing. So you got also the dopamine under control?
Oh,
So
completely. Yeah.
completely got it.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
look into EQ, just emotional intelligence a little bit, which is, I think, a lot of us entrepreneurs have a lot of good EQ with other people, but sometimes we don't have good EQ with ourselves. And so a lot of what we do in Refine is really get to the core of what takes care of you, and not just from a restorative sense, not just from a business or like your schedule and, all of that, but like you as you, what do you know that drives you? And how do you articulate that in a way that you can also be open to accepting that support and create space where for yourself, you're non judgmental, but that also in turn opens up the space for you to be non-judgmental towards others. And what we see in just understanding some of these principles is it really, a lot of it comes down to like Dale Carnegie is some of the basic principles. But when you are able to collect the data, and some of my clients don't like it, but I'm all about data and math, but I love the data. When somebody's talking to you or you're having an emotion, and you collect the data and you're like, okay, instead of like, I understand that emotions are going to be there. Emotions are very important. They're signposts. We have to process them. Sometimes I refer to them as it's not a very pretty thing, but like, when you're on the toilet, you got to wipe. And this is the emotional wiping, right? Like the emotional cleanup of what happens. And it's just a necessary part of life. But when you look at it in terms of what is the data telling me, and you operate from that. And a lot of what people don't realize, whether it's, client or partner conflicts, relational conflicts, or misunderstandings, is that your data is saying something completely different than this other person's data. And you're trying to communicate with these two data points, but they never meet because you actually have two sets of problems or two topics of conversation, or sometimes multiple. Maybe it creates a third one because this person's missing that, and that creates a third issue that needs to be taken care of. And a lot of times we're just going through motions without really understanding the root as a focus. So we want to teach you how to create your own focus for who you are and what you're about, both in for yourself, your personal life, others, and your business. And then also how that impacts and how you create that focus for your team or your clients. And that's, I think, this huge part of leadership, right? Like if you do leadership training, like when you have a common goal or common focus, it's really easy to maintain course and stay on the same page. And so what we find is when you have this, strategized or outlined, then you actually convert more sales. You have happier team members that show up and really perform. And you have clients that never want to leave you. So I think a lot of times we miss that, and we're always talking about KPIs and, all these other things, when what I have found is the easiest is to just focus on what is the goal? Like, what is your desire? Whether you're my client or my spouse or my, friend, what is your desire in our interaction here? And let me communicate my desire to you, and let's figure out a way that we can both contribute towards that goal consistently. And so that's the simplest thing, right? Is to be able to identify that.
That's awesome. So if uh, I I want people to know how to get in touch with you and tap into all of this stuff. Um, if you had a place to start for someone, what would that be? And I'll give you my example. When people say, all right, well, I'm trying to be bolder, where do I start? And I just say, start talking to a stranger every day. Talk to a stranger. And and they start to say, well, that was uncomfortable and now it's not. And I'm actually starting to enjoy it. And I'm getting all of this positive feedback loop. So I gave them this simple thing to start doing. Do you have like a sample drug, so to speak?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Probably something on that same line, if we want to make it really simple, is I ask my clients to just in between what we call transitions, right? So when I get off this podcast with you, I'm going to turn off my computer and I'm just going to pause and I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to ask myself, how do I feel and what do I need right now? That's it. How do I feel and what do I need right now? If I feel agitation, how do I feel and what do I need right now? If my, team is like hounding me for something I was unexpected, I'm just gonna take that breath. How do I feel and what do I need right now? And if you can take that moment to pause and honor that pause, you're able to articulate, and it leans into that, EQ a little bit more. Like sometimes my kids are like, mom, 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 they're hounding me here at my office. And I take that breath and I say, hey, girls, I just need 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to get my snack. I'm going to go outside for 5 minutes. If you give me those 5 minutes, I'll come back and address you. And you do that, and what you do is we call it cooling your jets, right? Because instead of staying in that constant sympathetic, we're bringing it back to parasympathetic. We're supposed to be, by default, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is just, or fight or flight, we'll call it, right? So you're supposed to be in a restful state, and fight or flight just comes over, and it's kind of hijacks, and it's important, right? That's how you know how to take action in moments of stress. But we are constantly at a low level, never ending, fight or flight state. And that is extremely taxing to our immune system, our nervous system, everything just, goes out the window after that. So if you can just take a moment, take that deep breath, turn inward and just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? And is there something that I need? Even if it's just for 30 seconds or 5 minutes, and give it to yourself. It's a game changer.
That's a wonderful thing. And I think people who aren't used to doing it, I think what you can expect people is you won't be able to identify it right away because you've become so out of touch with that and immediately jumping to the next thing that you can't answer the question, how do I feel right now? So you might have to sit a little longer, and you might have to make this part of your process until you can identify it. Like, oh, you know what? I am kind of anxious about that. I wish I had said this. I wish I had said that. I wish I hadn't, I wish I hadn't gone a full hour. I wish I had stopped at 30 minutes because I got stuff to do. Okay, so what do I need? And it's going to take some time to identify it. But I highly recommend that people do this, especially if you're revving it 7,000 RPMs all the time. One of the things that I learned that is parallels this is I am very good at dropping into flow state, and I'm also very good at being distracted. And one of the essences of flow state is recovery. Is like you can get into flow state for, they estimate, 90 minutes. That's 2 hours is too long. People who try to do it 3 or 4, they're not giving themselves the recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And recovery is absolutely not taking your phone out and doom scrolling. That you don't recover in that specific situation. But if you do the recovery, and it could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, all of a sudden you've got another 90 minutes of flow state that you could tap into. But if you try to do 6 in one day, you'll have nothing the next day. You will have burned it to the ground, and you'll get 15. You may never get in flow state. You may not even get started. So this is a great, not even a daily practice, what is your recovery moment? Are you cooling your jets sufficiently at little intervals during the day when you complete something? Yeah. So how does somebody get started working with MJ? That's what I want.
Shoot me a DM on Instagram. That's the easiest way. I'm in my DM all the time. Right now is a great time. I like to start a conversation, get to know you. If you do that, I'll leave you with my 3S sustainable success system. I don't know why I named it that.
So that you could stutter and be overly sibilant while you said it. Yeah.
It looks really cool on paper, the 3S system, right? Like that. But it's a sustainable success system. And it's a nice little PDF that gives you all the steps that we talked about here today. So if you shoot me a DM, I'll pass it over. And
and your Instagram handle
it's going to be at Marin Jaden. So can you put that in the notes, or it's
Marin Jaden. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
or you could
MJ,
just
what the
Google
MJ
MJ
stands
Growth.
for.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it'll pop up.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, it's going to be in the show notes. So DM her and get that PDF, and start, regulating yourself so that you can find uh, your day to be satisfying and fulfilling and achieving your purpose.
Yeah.
MJ, I can't wait to see you in person again. I'm hoping that that happens
Same.
soon at our
Yes.
BBG events. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank
And
you. This is wonderful.
yeah, and everyone out there, keep being bolder and checking yourself.
Thank you guys.